Hi, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Debbie and I am the founder and creator of Rebel Therapy, where we talk about all things tarot. And we've been doing a series every Wednesday on the major arcana, and this week we are up to card 16, which is the Tower. The Tower. This card strikes fear into readers and seekers alike. As you can see from the card, we have a tower that looks to have been struck by lightning with flames coming out of it. In certain decks, you'll see people jumping from this building, falling to their deaths. We see people at the base of the tower having been expelled from this tower. It's dark, it's cloudy, right? At first glance, the card can be quite intimidating. And I know for myself as a new reader, when I was a new reader, if this card came up in a reading, I would feel very like, oh my God, what am I going to say to this person who's come for a reading? So let's dive in a little bit, because the Tower is actually a card I've come to really respect and am no longer frightened of when it shows up in a reading, either for myself or for someone else. So the Tower is the influence and energy of Scorpio, and it's also the energy and influence of Mars. So Scorpio is a water sign, but is also known for being having the ability to go very deep into what is typically known as taboo subjects, not being afraid of intensity or depth or change. Mars is also the energy of the warrior god, right? So whatever sign, if you know your chart, whatever sign Mars falls in for you, will give you an idea around your vitality, your energy source, that place which propels you forward. Mars is that energy. And depending on where it falls in your chart, it can be conducive to taking action, or it can be a little bit of a problem, and it could present a problem for you in that area. So when the Tower comes up, the first thing we have to remember is that Tower energy falls on a spectrum, right? It can mean anything from a mild disturbance to a complete foundational shift for yourself or for the person who's come to you for a reading. So the thing to remember about the Tower is, regardless of where on the spectrum it's falling for you or your client, it's important to remember that Tower energy is always, as with every card in the tarot, it's always for your highest and best good. So it usually implies something needs to change. Most humans are not lovers of change, right? So a lot of us will avoid change, procrastinate around change, pretend it's not really happening, or that the situation or the environment doesn't need changing because it's uncomfortable, right? The Tower speaks to this sort of larger energy of let go or be dragged, right? At its most potent, right? The Tower will usually show up in a place or at a time when you know that change is necessary, but you don't really want to engage with it. You don't want to take the actions or be, tossed out of your comfort zone or have to sacrifice in any way. And so you kind of say, this thing in my life isn't great, but I don't want to do anything to upset the apple cart. The Tower comes along and says, you need to make a change. And if you don't make the change on your own, the universe is going to make it for you. So what kinds of questions might come up for somebody that you're reading for? Because again, the tower, people see the imagery of the tower and they feel like their life is about to fall apart, right? So there's a few questions around, prompts around, what in your life do you feel isn't working out right now? What brought you to seek out a tarot reading? Where are the places where you tend to avoid change? And yet, things are not going the way you imagined. They're not going as well as you think they can be. Where are those spots in the person's life? Right? And then the question becomes, okay, the tower energy is suggesting that if you don't do something to make even a small shift or change, the universe might step in and do it for you. So you could work with the person, and depending on the other cards in the spread, what sort of things, what small shifts do you think you're open to, or you could make to shift or pivot in the direction of making some change? Doesn't have to be that you upset your whole life, that you end the relationship, you quit the job, you move away, you make these drastic shifts and changes in one or several areas of your life. Remember, the tower's on a spectrum. Maybe all it requires of you is a shift in perspective, a change of attitude, one small shift that can set a new trajectory for you, right? Sometimes that's all that's required. Sometimes larger changes are required or being asked of you, and you're going to make a series of small changes, shifts, or pivots so that you get more adept, right? You get more adept at making these changes. You make a change, you settle in a little bit, you see how that feels, and then you've gained confidence and you're able to make another change, okay? So when this comes up, I don't want you to panic as a new reader. I want you to ask the person who's come to you for a reading, just probe it a little bit, right? What is it in your life that feels a little stuck, that's not performing, that feels off? You're out of alignment. You're not in flow. And working with that person around, let's get your thinking settled. Let's start moving your thinking toward what small change might I make? Right? Get them asking that question, journaling about it, taking it to their meditation, taking it into their therapy, taking it to a conversation with friends or family, right? Opening the door. Really, you're a facilitator. As a reader, you are a facilitator. You are assisting the person who's come to you to be open to what's happening and what the story that the cards are laying out, and how they may interpret that story and how they can work with the energies, right? Remember, we're not fortune telling. We are describing energies present for the person at that moment in time. Now, again, the tower is major arcana, so it's an archetypal energy that could be taking place over time, as change often does, right? And so you are there to help the person who's come to you open their mind and think about things in a different way. They think maybe they have to change everything about their life. Oh my God, the tower, what am I going to do? You are there to say, okay, let's break this down into something more manageable, something that's not scary. You're never there to deliver bad news during a reading or scare people into like, oh my God, let go or be dragged, right? I say that for you as the reader. That's not information you necessarily want to give the person who's come to you for a reading unless you know them well and you've developed a relationship and that's something you can say without stoking any fear, okay? So the tower, I love the tower energy. I love Scorpio energy. I love things that require change. Because if we're not changing, then we're not growing, right? When we resist change, we are resisting growth. And growth is necessary, right? We're always changing. We're always growing. We're always, we always need to be aware of where we might have a blind spot around the fact that we're stuck, okay? So it's actually good energy. On the other side of the tower, you won't be disappointed, right? It feels like a major upheaval. And on the other side of that upheaval is always positive growth. So it's important to always remind your client, the person who's come to you for a reading, of that little nugget. Okay. I hope that's helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.